what I realized is that was the old breed of physicians, Kyle. And I think you're definitely one of the leaders of the new breed of physicians. And that's the physicians that believe they can have it all. They want a phenomenal work-life balance. They want to be healthy and fit. They want to do really good work in the hospital or in the clinic or in medicine. But they want to have a very diverse and progressive portfolio of investments and assets that are going to far exceed their medical income one day, to where they get to practice for fun versus they have to.
This is my time.
Hi, I'm Kyle Stephenson, and you're listening to the Assets in Orthopedics podcast. In this forum, we hope to educate medical students, residents, physicians, and other high-income professionals on the power of investing, especially in real estate assets and syndications. We want to help providers gain financial intelligence with the hope of earning financial freedom. Please listen and learn so you can spend more time doing what you love with who you love. Enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Assets in Orthopedics podcast. This is your host, Kyle Stephenson. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you all to the man that needs no introduction. He is a cardiologist, entrepreneur, and real estate investor, Dr. Vikram Raya. Welcome to the show, sir.
Kyle, man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So real quick, I just want to say that before I introduce you, when I got into multifamily investing and told people I was a physician, every single one of them said, "Oh, you must know Dr. Raya with Viking Capital." You've made your mark.
Yeah, thanks, man. I wish I had Assets in Orthopedics podcast when I was growing up, but it was a lonely road in 2012, 2015 when I was starting to get into this stuff. People thought I was crazy. They thought I was like, it's abnormal. You're a physician. Why are you doing anything outside of that? In fact, I remember during my fellowship, one of my mentors, this guy's like, he's doing well financially. He lives in the cath lab, just stents left and right. And he's like, yeah, you should know the business you're in, and the business you're in is medicine. And don't ever forget that. I'm like, okay. All right. But what I realized is that was the old breed of physicians, Kyle. And I think you're definitely one of the leaders of the new breed of physicians. And that's the physicians that believe they can have it all. They want a phenomenal work-life balance. They want to be healthy and fit. They want to do really good work in the hospital or in the clinic or in medicine. But they want to have a very diverse and progressive portfolio of investments and assets that are going to far exceed their medical income one day, to where they get to practice for fun versus they have to.
Yes.
It's interesting, right? There's a vehicle to do that. There's a way to do that. And I discovered it many moons ago. You're on the path as well. And so I'm excited for all the listeners here to sort of unpack all of this.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get deep into that, and we really appreciate you saying that at the front end. So let me just introduce you real quick, and then we'll get into medical school and your early training, and then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Absolutely.
So in the field of medicine, Dr. Raya is an award-winning cardiologist, international speaker, and functional medicine specialist. He has helped thousands of individuals overcome their heart and health challenges and eventually pioneered a proactive cardiology paradigm that has led to the launch of Vitalogy Institute. Through his real estate company, Viking Capital, Dr. Raya has a total of over $750 million of assets acquired and is growing. The number is probably greater now.
So now we're at 800 AUM and $1 billion of acquisitions. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay. So on this bio, it says his vision is to get to the elusive $1 billion of acquisitions. You hit that. So fantastic. You've been honored by Forbes Business Council and has been named top 50 outstanding Asian Americas in business. Very impressive resume. So that's just the start of it. Please tell us about your early medical career, residency, and how you went from your probably traditional cardiology to Vitalogy Institute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had no interest in real estate, no interest in business. In fact, getting to medical school was the holy grail. It was a big deal. I was the first in my family to be a doctor. My mom really didn't think I was going to make it. She really wanted me to be a doctor, but she was like very worried because it was so competitive. And so she had all the brochures for, the island schools ready to go in the Caribbean. So she's like, okay, we'll figure out a way for you to get in. I'm like, Mom, I got this. And then, when I went to Emory for undergrad, and then I still remember, I wasn't in, but I guess they called my parents' house that I got into medical school. And then she was crying. She was so excited. I was like, all right, good. Made one of her dreams come true. But then, I got in, I had mixed feelings about medical school. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting, but I was like, is this something I can really sink my teeth into? But it was really when I get past the academic stuff and you really got into like the patient care. That's when it was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And then I thought, okay, well, internal medicine is great, but it's more of a pit stop. I need to figure out really how I want to go deeper. And, 6 people in my family died of heart attacks. And, my dad actually collapsed in front of me at my son's first year birthday. So I was like, damn, I got to figure this out. And so I went into cardiology because it just made a lot of sense, and there's a lure to cardiology. It has a little bit of glitz, a little bit of glamour. You get to do cool procedures, but in the end, it was really that I wanted to fundamentally impact the number one thing that kills people in this country and in the world probably. And so I went in and had this like visionary dream of what a cardiologist's life should be and should look like, and it was adhering to that until when I started in my fellowship, when I was training and I was almost ready to come out, and I saw the lives of the attendings that they're living. These guys like lived and died in the hospital. They were trying to like cath for dollars instead of cath for like the health of their patients. It was the monetary aspects of money that really drove them, and not all of them, but a lot of them. And I realized that, man, if that's what medicine looks like, I don't want to practice that way, And so I was starting to think about alternative optionalities where I'd practice, but the money would come elsewhere. You read the Kiyosaki books, you read the books on habit formation, you read the books on wealth creation, and then you're like, all right, there may be something else out there. So I started my business ventures. I started a medical staffing company while I was in fellowship, where I would secure contracts to like LTACs and SNFs, and I'd moonlight, but then I'd get my other buddies to moonlight, but I'd take a piece of their cut. So it was my first glimpse at business. And then I was like, all right, man, this stock trading is pretty easy. So then I got an options coach while I was in fellowship, and I tried options trading, and then I got my butt kicked. It was like really challenging. So I was like, all right, maybe that's not for me. And then when I finally got my first job in DC, and my wife, she's a rheumatologist, and we settled down. We had a little bit of a small family, at a 2-year-old at the time. I was like, all right, well, I probably need to have something else outside of medicine, because it's very risky to have all your eggs in one basket. And so that's when I started exploring different things. And then real estate, I figured I know a lot of non-degreed people who've done very well in real estate. So I think I can figure it out. And so I go into these real estate investment meetings and clubs, and we got taught wholesaling, which was a very painful strategy, where you essentially get something under contract and flip it to the next person. STRs weren't a thing back then. And so I didn't know anything about that. And then I tried, rehabbing, but in Northern Virginia, DC is too damn expensive. And so that's when I went back to, my dad lives in Atlanta. I was like, hey, Dad, let's go buy some homes and buy them, buy and holds. And that ended up being a strategy. So from 2012, while I was practicing full time, while I had 2 kids, and my wife's a doctor too, from 2012 to 2015, we ended up buying about 30 single family homes. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. But the actual amount of money I took home was very little. One, I had a business partner, my dad. And number 2, my wife told me I'm not allowed to take any loans under my own personal name, because she thought the whole thing was quite risky, and she didn't trust it. And so I had to do credit cards. I had to do creative financing. I had to do seller financing. And so the actual equity I had was very little. And I was like, man, this is for the birds. I'm not going to retire from cardiology this way. And I had made a declaration that year when I started cardiology, and when I was at the age of 33, I go, if I'm still practicing traditional cardiology by the age of 40, something went terribly wrong. Those were the exact words I said. I declared it to the universe. I had no freaking clue how I was going to accomplish it. And my friends and family laughed at me when I said it. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to figure it out. And so at that point, I went back to the DC real estate meetings, these DC clubs, these RIA clubs. And this guy came from Boston, and he had this Bostonian accent. And he's like, you got to buy these multifamilies, you got to do syndications, you got to raise capital, and they pay you these acquisition fees and all this. It was like Greek. It was did not. It seemed illegal, to be honest with you, but it intrigued me enough where that seed got planted. A year later, I went to a boot camp in Orlando. I worked with that same guy, and then I met someone there who was doing these kind of deals, and I partnered with them, and we ended up doing our first deal. And at that point, I made a decision. Hey, I want to go into this. I launched my company, Viking Capital, and a buddy of mine who was in real estate. I mean, he was a doctor, but he had done 2 or 3 rental properties. He thought he was retired. And I was like, dude, you're not retired. You're just getting started. Come join me. Let's go buy a 100 unit. And he's like, there's no freaking way we're going to buy 100 unit. I'm like, we'll figure it out. Come on. And so that buddy ended up becoming my business partner, Ravi. And so that was the origin of me, again, still full-time cardiologist, but moving down the field, making decisions, making mistakes, but then coming up with this idea that, hey, I'm going to be a doctor and a real estate investor.
That's awesome. And I will say, I mean, the timing worked out well for you because 2008 crash, 9 still, down. And then the market really from 2010 to 20 was great, right? So you got there in good time. Yeah. And obviously learned a lot on the way, which is cool. It's good that you started. And this podcast, again, is for medical students, residents, young physicians. So, it's good to hear that you went from some single family homes, started small and really built your way up.
Yeah. My first single family home, Kyle, was $28,000. And then we put like another 20 into it and we sold it for like 80. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And if you told me then that, oh, one day you're going to buy $100 million property, I'm like, there's no freaking way. There's absolutely no way. It would have blew my mind.
Very impressive. And I love what you talked about earlier with the, as a cardiologist being fulfilled because, from the outside looking in, you're a cardiologist, you're saving lives, you're doing these important things. How are you not fulfilled professionally and personally, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So I loved cardiology. I enjoyed it. I went in with a passion. So yes, I was exploring some options outside, but I never thought I was going to leave traditional cardiology profession. So I went in. I wanted to add a tremendous amount of value to my private practice that I was joining. So I was like, hey, let's add service lines. Let's go to this new hospital. We don't have a presence there. And so I did that. I did all these things, and within the cardiology structure, you get rewarded really for RVUs. And so it was like sort of disincentivizing. My entrepreneurship skills were being like curtailed because all they wanted to do and then I helped start pulmonary hypertension. I started a heart failure clinic. And those are not necessarily the highest reimbursed, but they add tremendous value to our practice. And so I think that's a challenge because you really want to add value. And then if you're not rewarded, it makes the person it makes them lose their drive. And so after all it was like 3 or 5 years of me busting my balls in different strategies in medicine, I was like, I also started a preventive clinic. I also noticed that what we were doing is they would come in, they'd have their challenges, we'd fix their challenges. We would fix it. We'd put a Band-Aid on it really. They'd send them back home and they'd come back in a couple of months later. And I was like, dude, why don't we take care of this upstream? And so I was like, there must be a way of medicine that does this. And I'm like, I know Eastern medicine does some of that, but there must be something more in Western medicine. So I read about this guy named Dr. Mark Hyman, who's now at the Cleveland Clinic.
He's like the head of functional medicine. Yep. Sorry.
Fathers of functional medicine. I was like, he had this approach called functional medicine, which is let's take the root cause of challenges. I was like, I love this. My only concern was the business model was at that time mainly cash based. And I'm like, that's pretty risky. I'm like, I want to do this though. So I'm like, all right, what if I didn't have to worry about money? Could I pull off this kind of clinic? And so that's what drove my real estate ambitions. It was because I wanted to have this clinic that was cash based, which is technically a little bit of a risk for me to branch out from my traditional practice. And so in 2015, we ended up buying our first deal in 2016. And I'll expand on the story of that deal in a second. But we ended up selling it in 2017 late 2017, early 2018. I was like, I had a 7-figure exit. I was in my 30s still. And I was like, all right, I feel comfortable now taking a risk. And so I sort of weaned off 5 days to 4 days to 3 days from traditional practice. I opened up a new practice that was cash-based concierge, wellness-based clinic in Northern Virginia while I was practicing in Maryland. And so I started living my dream, which was like, hey, I want to practice on my terms, And since I had that financial backing of real estate, it was a safe way to do that.
Yep, I love that. And I definitely want to dive deeper into the Vitalogy Institute and functional medicine in general. I think there's a huge draw for patients. I know there's a huge draw for patients. It's a matter of, is it going to get out there mainstream enough for patients? And I think that seems to be more of, something that's going on. And I think RFK Jr. is going to help that cause. And you could, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but
no, he's definitely an advocate for that. Mark Hyman has been advocating on Congress, and I think it's going to make sense once as medicine moves toward value-based care, and they see the value and then the results. Then it's like, hey, it's cheaper to really go upstream and clean all this up, change behavior, all that. But yeah, I think the message to the young guys listening to the podcast is: doesn't matter what your dream is, pursue it. And if you're in medicine, learn to practice how you want to. And if you're worried about the income, there's multiple streams of income. You can look. I've looked into buying businesses, franchises, real estate. You can do crypto. You can do stock trading. There's so many ways to earn money, and so don't let the money short circuit your dreams.
Yep, that's great. And I've read the stat that nowadays 75% of physicians are employed by some entity, whether it's a hospital, private equity, or even insurance companies. So that entrepreneurship mentality is going away medicine-wise. Now, not to say you can't do it elsewhere, right? Real estate and other assets that you just talked about.
Yeah, and because of that, I encourage physicians to become doctorpreneurs. You must become a doctorpreneur if you want freedom. Otherwise, the handcuffs are going to come on, and trust me, they're not bad handcuffs, right? I even joke, and I wrote a book, Kyle. It's coming out in about a week or two. It's called The Perfect Week Formula for Doctors. And so, if you're interested in that book, we can send it out to you guys. Just email my team at admin@vikramraya.com, and we can send you a book. But it's a phenomenal book, and we're talking about essentially, because our life is relatively cushy, but it is still restricted in many ways. If we still feel caged, I call it the Gucci handcuffs. They're sort of it's a nice lifestyle. We have the doctor car, the doctor house, the doctor private schools, but you're still not free. And to create that freedom, you must forge a path where you have multiple streams of income. You're financially savvy. You're tax efficient, like you always say, Kyle. And you're really very intelligent and smart in how you're practicing medicine.
Yes, that's wonderful. I like that. Gucci handcuffs. That's great. But yeah, I mean, there's more to freedom for sure. Freedom, the Lamborghini is not necessarily sexy, right? The freedom is sexy.
Yes.
So let's stay on real estate for just a little bit, because I have a couple more questions that I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts. A recent Wall Street Journal article stated that more than $2.2 trillion in debt is maturing before 2028. And much of that will have to be refinanced at higher rates. And that may have changed a little bit. But in saying that, what investments do you love right now in this current market?
We're looking for the distress in the deals. I don't see them yet. I'm waiting for them because I like to buy them. But I don't see them yet. I think a lot of it is not going to happen like 2008. I think a lot of banks are going to rework their debt and with borrowers. But that being said, there may be opportunities to sort of buy at a very good basis at either a discount or below market. And so we did the most number of deals ever for our company, which was 5 in 2024, and we're planning to do I think 8 or 9 next year. So we're backing up the truck because I've been through the cycle already. This is essentially the bottom for me, and I'm planning to sell in 2027. I'm planning to sell my portfolio in 2027 when everyone else is trying to get in, and it becomes more of a frothy market. So that is my thought process. The key right now is good basis, good locations, newer assets, and really being very strategic. And the debt, obviously I'd recommend fixed rate debt. And if you can, if you can buy it at the previous owner, that might be the way to go. So there will be some pain in the marketplace that needs to be processed. I don't think there's going to be any bailout or anything, but there will probably be some reworking and restructuring of debt. So you're not going to see it being flooded in the market. And that being said, with the new elections, rates slowly trending down, it'll get processed. There'll be some pain, but it's not going to be a 2008.
Yep, that's great. And advice to young physicians is continue doing that research so that you can be ready, or at least find the operators that understand what they're doing, like a Dr. Raya, who has been through it and understands, what's going on right now.
Yeah, and so for the young guys, it's there's a lot of ways. If you have money, the first thing you should invest on is yourself. So you get a 30x ROI when you invest on your own education. So there's the traditional education, which you guys have crushed. That's why you're physicians or wherever, or practicing in some way. But then the second education has to be mindset. Like, are you a scarcity mindset or abundance mindset, right? Number 2 is, are you a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? And then 3 is really like, acquiring useful skills. If you learn to analyze investments, if you learn to look at opportunities, you learn to manage taxes and finances, you learn to acquire assets, you learn to create partnerships, learn to read financial statements, even in your own medical practice. Look, you don't have to go outside of medicine. If you have your own clinic, I know Kyle had a very disturbing statistic of most people not being privately owned, but if you are privately owned, this is the time to scale your clinics, guys. Like, learn to go from 1 to 3 locations, learn to go from 3 million of revenue to 6 million of revenue, learn to bring on people and figure out the constraints on your business. Is your constraint bandwidth? Is it a constraint new patients? Is it a constraint, operations, whatever that is? Learn to scale. And then you can then sell to private equity instead of private equity, owning you, as an employee.
Yeah, that's awesome. You made me think of the quote by Jim Rohn, an entrepreneur, who says, formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune.
Yep.
Bet on yourself. Yep. All right. So here's a white coat investor. We talked about white coat investor before the podcast, I think. And here's a quote that they had on their Instagram, which I thought was fascinating. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. They said, did you know that despite 20 to 30 plus years of physician paychecks, 25% of doctors in their 60s are still not millionaires? What's your thought about that? And what's some good advice you have for?
I would think it would be higher than that, actually. I agree with that. First of all, millionaire is a low standard. So I want to make sure everyone listening to that hears me. Single digit millionaires clip coupons. So if you're going to try to be quote unquote free, wealthy, I would say the minimum is you need to get to probably 10. Otherwise, you're going to still be looking over your shoulder. So that's number 1. Number 2, look, with the high income that a physician has been blessed with, most of it is expense inflation happens. So you're keeping up with the Joneses. I call it the Rolls-Royce paradox. So essentially, we've been deprived for so long as physicians, medical students, residents, fellows. The moment we get that first paycheck, we just can't hold it any longer. Right? We've been deprived for almost 25 years, 30 years. And so you buy the nice house, the nice car, the nice watch, then nice vacations and all that. So because to really become a millionaire, you need a delta between what you make and what you spend. That delta, if invested wisely, creates the millionaire pathway. And so the problem is that delta is very small with physicians. 1, tax inefficiencies. 2, expense inflation. And 3, living in very expensive parts of the country. Right? Between those 3 things, there's not much delta left. And so then you have a linear pathway, which takes a very damn long time to become a multimillionaire.
Love it. Man, and another thing on that note too, Tony Robbins' book I just read, Money, Master the Game. He talked about how, taxes is 50+% of people's paychecks, right? And then 30% or so is interest payments alone.
Yeah.
So now you're only left with, 20% basically to live, invest, do all those things. Like, that's insane. So if you're not smart about it, to your point, then you can take advantage of it pretty quickly.
Right. That's why I would say really investing in yourself, and you make yourself more valuable, right? When you make yourself more valuable, renegotiate your salaries, consider higher level partnerships, invest in an ASC, get dialysis centers, imaging places. You have to get from the E and the S side of the quadrant, as you guys know, to the B and the I side of the quadrant. If you guys stay on the E and S, it's more likely you're gonna make the white coat investor and everything else they talk about, true.
What he's referring to, if you don't know, listeners, the Robert Kiyosaki book, Cash Flow Quadrant. Read it and sear that into your brain. All right, so real quick, let's get specific. With all that in mind, could you give advice to young? We're going to give it, 3 different demographics of physicians: young medical students and residents regarding investing. What's some advice you would have for them?
Young medical students and residents is house hack. Don't rent. Go borrow, beg. Ask your parents, ask friends. Seller financing, and then instead of renting, live in buy the house, rent it to other medical students. You live in one part of it as well, and you already have your first asset. Number 2 is learn to invest micro amounts of money into the stock market and learn to trade effectively if you can.
Great.
And read a ton of books on mindset, education. Go to a Tony Robbins event. Do all of that good stuff, and then be selective around the friends you're with.
Love it. Great advice. How about that young attending who's 5 to 10 years out, basically my demographic, still has loans and still trying to figure things out. They're just starting to make good money, you could say. What's your advice to somebody like that regarding investing?
Yeah, live way below their means. Don't buy the big house, big car, big watch. Educate if they haven't done it already. Invest in themselves. Coaching, mentoring, conferences. Outside of medicine, going to the AMA is not going to get you rich. Going to the orthopedic conference or the ACC or whatever group that you're part of is not going to get you rich. And then declare you're going to be rich. Create goals, visions, timelines, timeframes that are sort of make you feel uncomfortable. You don't know how you're going to accomplish it, and then put it out there. Then choose a vehicle. The vehicle is important. Warren Buffett had a really cool story. So, he graduated from Columbia Business School, and so did one of his good buddies. And his good buddy went to the steel industry, and Warren obviously went into investing and eventually, started Berkshire. And so, a reporter came to him and said, "Hey, you both were started at the same time. How come you guys ended up in different places?" He's like, "Well, my friend, he's smarter than me. He worked harder than me. It just, he ended up the steel industry, and I chose this." And he goes, "It's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in."
Love that.
So choosing the right vehicle for your goal creation, wealth creation is absolutely critical. If I chose, I don't know, Baskin Robbins instead of multifamily, maybe my life would have been different. I don't know. Like, the vehicle you choose, like pet grooming company versus, self-storage. I don't know. Like, you have to choose the right vehicle, and it will get you to your goals a lot faster. So I think that's key. And then it's really, if you're going to be a stock person or equity person, or you're going to invest in companies, then do that much more aggressively. And specialization is needed at the beginning until you have a windfall. Then you can become diversification. People flip that ratio and they diversify at the beginning. When you diversify, you have watered down returns. When you specialize, you have more advanced returns. You can get 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x on your money. So I would say specialization. The specialization requires specialized knowledge, which requires skill acquisition. And then role model success. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Someone's already done it before. And then again, peer groups are important. Your doctor friends. There's poor doctor friends, there's mid-level doctor friends, and there's really wealthy doctor friends. Inevitably, the really wealthy doctor friends are more on the business side. It's a matter of fact.
Fantastic, man. All right. How about let's focus on the middle-aged or older physician that, maybe 55 years old, still has 5 to 10 years left in practice.
If they're hungry, get back in the game and let's go. It's never too late. If they're not hungry, then go passive and try to accelerate a little further. Invest in syndications, invest in deals, and stop just hoping that the mutual funds are going to get you to a sweet retirement.
Yeah, I will say I do get a lot of people reaching out to me. That's that middle age or later in their career. They're like, man, I get taxed so much. What am I doing wrong? And so those are the ones that you really want to help out. I mean, it's real estate. Real estate's a great play for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But to your point, being aggressive with it. Yeah, limited partner deals. For the most part, are not going to help you a ton on that. That's going to help passively. I think we should move on to functional medicine, just because I think it's fascinating. I know that this is orthopedics or assets and orthopedics podcast where we talk about a lot of assets, but I do think that our health is so important, and that's becoming a bigger thing, more important. I think older physicians probably didn't focus on it as much as these younger physicians are, the new generations. Functional medicine, I think it used to be more of a quackery type term.
It was a fringe thing, but if you don't mind, let's go beyond just functional medicine. Functional medicine, to be honest with you, is like that was 2012, 2015, 2018, 2019. I would think the newest thing now is anti-aging, it's longevity, it's biohacking.
Yep.
And it's really like, let's go to the next level. The goal, guys, is to live beyond 100. If you're not even aiming for that, you're missing out. There's the technology's there. If we can get to 2030, that the latest science is suggesting, we're probably going to unlock huge longevity hacks. The cheat codes for longevity are probably going to be coming online in the next 3 to 5 years. And so you got to maintain your internal structure, your internal temple. And so let's talk about sleep. Sleep is one of the top things all of us need to optimize. And so if you're not tracking it, basic stuff, right? Get an Oura ring, get a Whoop band, right? Or if you have like a bed that tracks your sleep, I have a Sleep 8 bed. That's phenomenal. So next is the 10-3-2-1-0 formula, right? So this is how you optimize your sleep. 10 hours before you go to sleep, you need to stop caffeine. 3 hours before you sleep, no heavy meals or alcohol. 2 hours before you sleep, shut down your work. 1 hour before you sleep, no screen time. And then 0 is the number of times you press snooze. And then you want to be twice as productive as your fellow doctors. Stop treating weekends and weekdays differently, right? Who said you have to like sleep in on the weekends and get up early on the weekdays? Just treat it the same. Your body doesn't know the difference. Then it's water intake. We know we should drink water 2 to 3 liters at least. And track that. If you don't do any kind of fasting or any kind of intermittent fasting or regular fasting, then consider doing some of that. There's different ratios you can consider. There's a technology for fasting called Prolon, Prolon. It's created by a guy named Walter Longo from USC. He's one of the top longevity researchers in the world. And he's created this 5-day fasting mimicking diet, and it helps you turn on autophagy. It gets rid of cellular debris. It creates rejuvenation. It triggers stem cell triggers. They've seen this in autoimmune patients. They've seen this in cancer patients. They've seen this in cardiometabolic patients. Phenomenal results. So this is something that Oprah Winfrey does many times a year. A lot of celebrities do it. 100,000 people have gone through the program. It's phenomenal. So once a year, I'd probably recommend going on a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And day 6, after 5 days of doing it, day 6, when you eat any kind of food, you think it's like from God. It's like tastes so good. You're like, oh my God. It's like the juiciest morsels. What else? If you do all the foundational work, stem cells and peptides are probably what's next, right? Those are things that you can look at that are a little more advanced. Hormone replacement, men in their 40s, women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, older physicians, you may want to consider some of that for high performance. Resistance training, as you know, as an orthopedist, invaluable. And for those people who have osteoporosis, besides the bisphosphonates, which most people have mixed reviews on, there's a technology called OsteoStrong, which is these centers all over the country where they put in, for short periods of time, intense pressure on different joints, and then it has proven to start increasing bone strength. So I'm just giving you the glimpse of all the different types of layers and strategies out there. And I haven't even gotten to blood work and microbiome.
I was going to say diet. Give us a general thing on diet.
So the diet I'd recommend is a vegan diet. It's paleo and vegan. So what that means is essentially, if you can eat meat, I'd recommend it. Most people do better on it, but the sourcing of the meats has to be really good. grass-fed, organic, wild-caught fish. You get the point. Pasture-raised, eggs, all that kind of stuff. So high-quality meat, tons of vegetables, and then limited grains, healthy fats, right? And then it's all about calories too. Like a lot of people say, oh, you can eat as much as you want as long as it's healthy. That's not true. If you eat a lot of healthy food, you'll get fat. And so really figure out what the right calorie is, and that's based on your basal metabolic rate. So figuring that out and doing that. And for most people, probably a slight calorie restriction periodically throughout their year is probably healthy for them. It helps regulate their insulin. Is if you're insulin resistant, that's where a lot of the inflammation happens. And so I think some of that is huge. The core four of supplements: vitamin D, probiotic, fish oil, and like a really good multivitamin. If you do those four things, I think that's a really good maintenance strategy. So I think a lot of, we talked about sleep, we talked about water, we talked about nutrition, we talked about resistance training. And if you could throw in flexibility, that's phenomenal. And then remember, meditation is the new caffeine. So start doing some mindfulness, doing some technology. There's technology apps that you can use. There's something called a Muse headband, which is since a single lead EEG that literally detects your brain waves. And so if you get into a good meditation state, it gives you feedback and you're hearing beautiful music. And when you get out of state and you're thinking all these chaotic thoughts, then you have all this crashing thunder sounds. And so it's a cool way to train your brain into being in sort of a more of an alpha meditative state.
Yeah, like a rewire, essentially.
Yep. So a lot of cool stuff in the works, but that's this. The way I do anything is the way I do everything. The way I approach real estate is the way I approach my parenting, is the way I approach my relations with my wife, is the way I approach my health. And so I would say the key really is elevate all your games, elevate your standards, play at a highest level possible, expect more out of yourself than anyone else, and just watch the results.
Yep. I love that. What do you say about alcohol? Because I've minimized my alcohol greatly over the last probably 2 years. And I want to get to a point where I just can stop it completely. I haven't done that yet, but I'm pretty darn close.
There's two strategies. So, like things like 75 hard, if you guys know what that is, it's, I'll just say for the group out there, it's just a mental challenge. It's essentially no alcohol for 75 days, no cheat meals. You're following some type of diet, drinking, a gallon of water, 10 pages of a self-development or a business book. And I think that, and then two workouts.
2 workouts, one outside.
Yeah. So it's if you can pull it off, man, that teaches you so much self discipline, and you'll really see a huge transformation in your body. The other thing is that stop looking at BMI and weight, guys. Just look at percent body fat and get your percent body fat down. Get under 20. If you can get under 15, that'd be phenomenal. That would make you anti-inflammatory. And so whatever it takes to get there. Alcohol, my thought process is, ideally, we should all come off of it. It's very difficult. It is challenging. That being said, I've had friends do the 5 drinks a year thing, which is pretty cool. I only drink 5 times a year with like really cool people and really high quality like liquor or alcohol, right? And so it's more of an experience. Other people have said, hey, I've moved to alternatives. I do Heineken Zero. I do mocktails. I do all these things. That's one way to do it. It's really changing your identity. But the opposite side is I was on a mastermind trip with one of these Harvard professors, the guy who created the Harvard Study for Happiness, 75 years. And what he said was, look, I agree with all that. Alcohol is there. But if you're doing it in such a way that it creates so much joy and passion and connection, and if you don't drink and you're in isolation mode, then you sort of lose some of the benefits of not drinking. So figure out if you can be social and not drink, that's the key, right? But if you need it and it allows you to live a robust, happy, social life, there could be a role for a minor intake occasionally, like you're saying, Kyle. So the jury's still out, but I'm following your footsteps and trying to reduce myself to where it's rare, super rare.
Yep, that's awesome. I think, just from my outside perspective, Vitalogy Institute and what you're doing with this, the anti-aging biohacking, is making such a profound impact on individuals, more so than traditional cardiology, right? Just put them on a statin,
if you hold on for a second, let me show you.
Please.
Let me show you something here. in my clinic, this is just a small sample of all the pills I was able to take people off of. It's amazing. And now, I didn't really tell you about my other thing. So during the pandemic, I had a lot of doctors come to me saying, "Hey, we're frustrated. We don't know what to do. Our clinic is shut down, or, I want to do my business ideas." And so I sort of fell accidentally into the mentoring thing, and it's been fun. So I've launched my company Limitless MD, and over the last, I don't know, 4 years now, we've been mentoring hundreds of doctors all over the country in mindset, business, leadership, scaling their clinics, getting into real estate, entrepreneurship, and it's been phenomenal. So it's one of the funnest things I get to do, and it's why you do the podcast, Kyle. You want to give back, I want to give back, and it's been a blast.
Mm-hmm. I think when you talked about elevating everything, people will ask, how do you have so much time in a day, in a week? But when you say elevate everything, you're making that sleep more efficient, and you're making everything you do more efficient. So you're not wasting time. You're not watching Netflix. You're not watching, not to say you're not watching sports on Saturday or Sunday, but you're limiting that, I would imagine. And that's, what we all try to do, right?
And it's not reactive; it's intentional. If I'm going to watch something, it's on my calendar. I'm like, okay, I'm making time for it because I think it's important. But I'm not just sitting there. I don't know what to do. Let me just flip the TV on. No, in a way, discipline equals freedom, guys, and that's from Jocko Willink from the Navy SEAL. I mean, discipline equals freedom. So the more you can schedule things, the more you can control your calendar, the more time you have, actually.
Yep. Hey, so real quick, this is kind of a personal question, but I think a lot of people will get benefit out of it, and it has to do with the anti-aging, biohacking, just labs in general, overall health. So I've been getting deep into looking at carnivore and looking at all these different diets and just doing research on that. And with carnivore, they talk about LDL levels may be higher than usual, therefore total cholesterol may be higher than usual, and more people are eating pasture-raised eggs. Whereas before they were saying, stay away from cholesterol, don't do, fat-free everything. With that being said, and I know there's a lot of labs that you can get on basic labs, is LDL being elevated or just LDL in general versus the triglyceride to HDL level ratio. Is that something that's comparable, or is there that's too simple?
I would say if someone has an elevated LDL, there's three things I would do. Number one, I would get oxidized LDL. It's a marker LabCorp does. Number two, I would get LDL particle number, because small dense particles are the ones that cause atherogenesis. And the third thing I would do is get a calcium a CT score, calcium CT. Well, it's like $200, $300. Usually insurance doesn't even cover it. And it'll tell you if you have any calcifications in your coronaries. And so those three things would give me very next level insight into what's going on. And then I'd make a decision on, hey, it's nothing to worry about, or hey, I need to be careful.
And with that being said, too, I know there's local docs you can go to. You're in Northern Virginia, correct?
I'm in Northern Virginia.
Are there labs that I could go on your website and order? And
yeah, so I'm not currently taking on any new patients or anything like that. But I do have a lot of people I can refer you to. So if people reach out, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. And my email, I can put my email, Vikram at vikramraya.com, if we can put it there. And my website, vikramraya.com. And if they're interested in real estate, vikingmultifamily.com would be a good one as well. So, and yeah, just reach out if you have any questions. Reach out if you're interested in coaching. Reach out if you're interested in real estate. And if you need help with your medical stuff, I have a lot of good, cool doctors I can refer you to who are interested in all this.
That's great. I will put all that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And hey, before we get going, I usually ask 4 simple questions at the end.
Yeah, go for it.
And then we'll finish it up.
Yeah.
So what book are you reading right now?
The Diary of a CEO.
Very nice. Who's the author?
Bartlett, Stephen Bartlett. He has a very famous podcast, and he just took the best of the best and put it in the book. And it just gives you a lot of cool insights on things, on how people have grown their companies, their thought process, their frameworks. So it's a very cool book. Highly recommend it.
Okay. What advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Don't hesitate. Start soon. Start now. Trust in yourself. It'll all work out.
Love it. What is your definition of wealth?
I have a definition of wealth that's called the 8 forms of wealth. It involves, I think wealth is beyond just finances. You need to have mindset wealth. You need to have relationship wealth. You need to have career wealth, economic wealth, and health and vitality wealth, or vitality wealth. Those are the five foundational wealths. And then if you wanted to, if you want to live the 1% life. If you want to live the 0.001% life, you want to add on 3 more, which is adventure wealth, going on trips, Spartan races, doing all that cool stuff. Then it's I call it genius wealth, being around super smart mentors, coaches, peers that are just pushing you and you're enjoying their company's mastermind, all that. And then the last one is impact wealth. You're making a dent in the universe. You're making your life on this earth matter.
Love that. All right. This somewhat fits into that. Proverbs 11:25 in the Bible states that a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So if you can make a big impact by giving back, what have you or what are you doing or what have you focused on?
That's awesome, man. That was a great question. So in my coaching company, Limitless MD, already, we're giving back. We're helping all these doctors out. It's great. We have 2 retreats a year, one in February, one in May. And that's amazing. People love it. It's intimate. People hang out. And then now it's like, all right, what else could I do? And so I'm going to have a 3rd event, and it's going to be essentially Doctors Without Borders meets 4 Seasons. And so it's going to be called Mission Limitless. And we're going to do medical missions all around the world with all the cool doctors that we all are part of. And we're going to just have huge impact. People can have fun. They can do adventure. They can stay in nice places, but then they can get their hands dirty and impact people in Honduras and Africa and India and China and, Europe, wherever, and just help people using what we know, which is medicine.
I love that. That is fantastic. And to your point, and you talked about Limitless MD and having a coaching program and people focusing on themselves early on, investing in themselves. That takes a little bit of investment, some capital to do that. And I think that sometimes is what gives people the hesitancy to want to do that, right?
Yeah, but they invest in themselves already with their education. And so, look, I've invested, let's say $300,000 in my medical journey. I've invested $1 million in my entrepreneur journey, and the ROI speaks for itself. So I've bought $1 billion of real estate. I have 3 7-figure companies. I retired from medicine at the age of 40. So if you invest wisely, the ROI is there. Remember, it is an investment. It's just about how bad you want it. Where do you want to go? Look, you either are going to invest money or you're going to invest time. I chose to invest money. You can choose to do it on your own, but it will just take you a lot longer. That's all. So the rule of 10,000 hours, Kyle? It takes you 10,000 hours to become a master. Who said it has to be your 10,000 hours? I encourage people to steal other people's 10,000 hours.
That is awesome. Yeah. What do they say? Poor people save money. Poor people spend time to save money. Rich people spend money to save time.
Absolutely.
There you go. Awesome. Hey, thank you for coming on, Dr. Raya. You obviously make a huge impact in the physician world and the world all around, really. You are a triple threat, maybe more than just 3 things, but you're definitely you're a very intelligent guy, and you've done a lot of great things. So it's cool for us to A, have you on, but B, just follow your journey, and you've made a huge impact on myself. So I appreciate that.
Appreciate it, Kyle. Thanks so much, man.
We'll put everything in the show notes so that people can find you and reach out to you, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is my time. I'm on the rise. Can't hold me down.
Thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, please leave a review so our community can continue to grow. If you would like to stay connected or receive a copy of your free investing ebook, please go to www.sharpinvestmentsllc.com, and that's sharp with a P as in professional. This is not financial or tax advice. Please consult with your financial advisor or CPA.